recording. And you know what? I just said I'm going to start recording.
Eligible.
And do your assignment as well. Okay, so let's talk
I did
about...
my assignment.
Actually,
One
did
of
you do
them.
your assignment?
One of
Okay.
them.
Okay, so the hard drive project, you guys are going to have all day today to work on it, and we're going to present on Tuesday, so you got 4 days to finish it after today. So first of all, you have to go to the hard drive, not the rubric, you have to go to the hard drive, choose your presentation topic if you haven't already, and then there are a variety. You're all going to present on a solid state and a spinny drive, okay? So a solid state drive for home and a 1 terabyte for business. So why am I specifying for your motherboard? Because you have to show that you understand the connection types, right?
Okay.
So if your motherboard on your home only does SATA 2, there's no reason to get a SATA 3 drive. And if you do get a SATA 3 drive, it should be backward compatible, which almost all of them are.
If you have a SATA 3 motherboard, does it matter if you have a SATA 2 hard drive?
No.
Those just don't matter. Yeah, that's what I thought.
It just means the hard drive will connect it to both of them. They will connect at the speed of the slowest device that's available. So anyway, so that, like this one's a 500 gig SSD and a 1 to 2 terabyte for business. A 256 gig business, a 0.5 to 1 terabyte for home. So you can see the different ranges here of ones that you can do. So the first thing you have to do is you have to pick that, and then you're going to go. Now this is the one presentation that it doesn't have to be the same company. In fact, I'm pretty sure it says that on the thing. So you're not going to give us information on the company like you have before. Why is that, Ian?
Because hard drives are really,
Who makes spinning hard drives?
everybody.
I have no idea.
Hard drive companies. Who makes SSD hard drives?
Everybody.
Memory companies.
Oh, what?
Okay? What is a SSD drive?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's memory. Okay, it's memory. Now that doesn't say that Seagate doesn't make SSD drives too. Okay, but Samsung as a company makes the best.
Yeah.
Sometimes makes the best SSDs, but go find a Samsung spinny drive. It's not their business. Okay, so it depends on we're talking about really different companies. Kingston makes SSDs. And I've got a bunch of Kingston solid-state drives, but I don't have a single Kingston spinny drive. They don't make them. Kingston is a memory company, okay?
That's the one I'm getting.
And this is full of memory, okay? Which is why you're not going to be talking about a company today, okay? You're just about two different things. So you're gonna give us just this one. It's an introduction of yourself, a recap of the motherboard specs, so we know that hey, it takes 8 SATA 3 drives, and I can do RAID 0 through 5, and blah, blah, blah. You're going to tell us the capabilities of your motherboard, because RAID is not a capability. When we were talking about RAID the other day, RAID has nothing to do with the drives itself. This does not define RAID. The motherboard defines how you can hook up your stuff. So in this case, if you don't have that information already on your motherboard hard drive thing, that's something you might have to go back and research. What kind of hard drive connections does your motherboard do? And it should say on the motherboard somewhere, supports RAID 0, 1, and 5. Supports whatever. And I found a really good RAID article that I want you guys to make sure you read going forward on this so that you understand RAID a little better. Okay, it was a really good RAID article, because that one I just Googled the other day was kind of crap. It was okay. Okay, so you have to recap the motherboard specs for the hard drives you're going to give. For the motherboards you're going to connect the hard drives to. So it's the speed that it connects at and what kind of connections it does. Okay, now you're going to give us a background, but you're going to give us 2 backgrounds. So it's kind of like I introduce myself, I talk about the motherboard, and then I talk about Kingston a little bit. But you're going to, like I said, you guys weren't here, we're not talking about one company, we're talking about 2, because SSDs are made by memory companies, because this is memory, okay, which is different than spinny drives. Western Digital, Seagate make hard drives, among many others, but they don't make SSDs because this is memory. It's a totally different manufacturing process, okay? So you kind of give us a little background on the company, same kind of stuff, so you're kind of doing double background. And then you're going to talk about the hard drive. So we already talked about a bunch of these things yesterday, so you're going to talk about the size in gigabytes or terabytes, depending on the size of your drive. We're going to talk about the speed, the rotational speed, And obviously, is there a rotational speed of the SSD, Ian?
0.
0, right? There's no rotation, there's no moving parts in there, okay? Access time or latency, how long it takes to access data on your drive, and that's a finite number that you should be able to find on every single spinny drive, okay? And it's generally a function of the speed that the drive is spinning. The faster it rotates, the faster the access time, okay, or the lower the latency. Latency is delay, okay? So this is a time to access the data. Latency is the delay before it finds the data. And these are averages, right? Because if the head is right over the data, then it goes, yeah, got it, okay? This is an average based on anywhere it could be on the disk. So, and then it should have speeds for reading and writing, which are not the same as the access time. Again, it's related to the relational speed, okay? But these things in SSD drive are different, okay? One of the things we did, transfer rate, that's a factor of your what? What defines how fast the data can be transferred? The cable and the motherboard, the generation of SATA that we're talking about, really. Okay, so the slowest generation, if your motherboard is SATA 2, your hard drive is SATA 3, it's transferring at SATA 2. Okay, but in this case, we're talking about of the drive, so the drive is capable of transferring at SATA 3, and that's where you might mention, but my home motherboard only has SATA 2. Okay, but you need to understand this is about the drive. We didn't talk about buffers yesterday when we were talking about drives, and it's one of the terms that you should have gotten from your reading. Of course, I open on the other screen. But one of the things that it did come up. Okay, one of the things that to help define how good a spinny drive is the buffer. So a buffer, and I didn't really need to write it down, but buffer is just memory. Buffer is just memory on the drive, okay? So basically the way it works is I've got my spinny drive here, and I've got some, I'm going to say it's RAM, I've got memory here. So as it's reading, if it can't get out the cable in time, it goes to memory, so it's sitting there waiting to go out the cable when the motherboard is ready for it, okay? So for instance, if you're trying to transfer a big file that's very fragmented, it might be putting the information in the buffer, and then as it's ready for the information, it goes out. So a buffer speeds up, or can speed up, how fast data transfers because it's moving it from the hard drive to this RAM buffer here on the hard drive before it goes out. So better, higher buffers help hard drives perform better. So that's one of the reasons you're going to talk about what kind of buffer exists on it. Do you think there's a buffer on an SSD? No, it's all memory already, right? So there's no reason to put a buffer on an SSD. So that applies only to your spinny drive. Okay, then when we talk about SSD, we're talking about IOPS, and you're going to have to find how to convert that to megabits per second. And I think it's in one of the articles that I gave you. Okay, so what's that mean? How does this convert to the same transfer rates that we get up here from our other drives? Okay, so you're going to see the IOPS, and you're going to see the IOPS are way faster on SSD, the read and writes ability. Now on SSDs, there's different, and I think this was in your reading, and if it's not, I need to put an article on there. There's different ways that SSDs are written, and they're SLC, MLC, and TLC. Was that in your guys' reading? I can't remember if that was on one reading. Okay, so I'll make sure I add an article on there on those. These are different memory architectures on how the stuff is saved on here, okay? And I'm not going to go through it right now because I want you guys to get started, but I'll post an article on that so you can read. But basically, different ways of writing on here make this last longer and more resilient, but more expensive, okay? So if it's got single layer versus multi-layer writing, single layer is cheaper, but the SSD won't last as long, okay? Multi-layer is more expensive, but because it's writing in different layers on your drive, it's going to last longer. So you're going to talk about which one your drive uses and why it's important that it's got, maybe you're going to say, hey, mine uses SLC. Users don't even know what that means. That's why mine only costs $45, and this is the best one that you're going to want to sell. Okay? Because there's a reason for all of them, right? Industry-wise, I may not want an SLC drive because the last thing I want is Brandon's information to be saved on a drive that's going to be gone in a year, okay? Because it's writing really, okay? Talked about this yesterday. What's the mean time before failure or the annualized failure rate of the drive they're giving us, or the expected lifespan? Because some of them say that. In fact, solid-state drives say how many writes you get out of them. They'll have a warranty, but it'll also say this many writes, this much gigabytes or terabytes of data can be written on it before it's dead. Obviously the warranty, obviously the cost with the link where we can find that price, and at least one picture of the drive. No used, refurbished, or white label drives. White label, and you'll see this when you look at them, and they present white label drives like they're new, okay? This is a white label drive. It has a white label on it. But what does that mean? There is no company called MDT. Does not exist. This is not an MDT drive. MDT is a company that buys somebody else's broken drives, refurbish them, and put their own sticker on the front of it, and call it an MDT drive. But if you look at it when you go to buy it, it's called a white label drive because this company does not exist. This is just a refurb of some other drive that's been turned in through warranty purposes or something else, that this company buys a bunch of warranty drives from Seagate, and they go and put them through whatever process they do. These are really cheap. When I bought these, I think they were $8 a piece. I bought a box of them, and I put them in every single student computer that we had, okay? Because I couldn't beat $8 a piece when I bought this huge box of these. Did it improve our computers? Oh my gosh, yes. I replaced every IDE hard drive in the district with the SATA drive by buying white label drives. But I didn't put them in teachers' computers because their data was important. You guys are supposed to be saving your stuff on your H drive. And if the computer died and I rewiped it, nobody cried. Somebody might cry, but you know, it's too bad for them. But I would never put one of these in your own computer because to me, the life expectancy of this drive is not great, okay? And usually the warranty on a white label is something like 3 months, not 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. The solid states that we have on our servers are 10-year drives, but again, they're limited by the number of writes. So if you hit the write limit in 5 years, the warranty is expired. We had that with Moodle, where the drive died, and we did the test. It was like 500 gig under the limit, and so we sent it in, and we got a new drive, and it was awesome. But really, what we should do in the summertime is power them down. There's a piece of software that I'll show you next week that lets you see how many writes yours has. You can use it on your own computer and see how many writes it's at and whether it's coming up to the limit. Okay. And then obviously a question slide, work slide is cited slide. That's your 2 things that you're doing research on. 2 drives. Okay. Yes, Ian.
Can you refurbish it SSD or do you just toss them
No, you cannot. I don't believe they can refurbish an SSD. I mean, I can't refurbish an SSD. I don't know what they do. When I mail it back to Samsung, and what do they do with it? I have no idea. Whether they can pull it apart and analyze which pieces of memory on there are coming up on their expiration, whether they can pull it on. I doubt it at the cost. You know, if they're selling this drive for $45, how much does it cost them to make? 3, 4? Most likely, because once you throw in distribution and resale and everything, everybody's got to make their piece of the pie on this resale of this device. Probably didn't cost them more than 5. So is it worth 10 minutes of someone tearing this apart to try to refurb it? Probably not. Probably gets melted into its core elements and then repurposed, most likely. Okay.
Can't choose a topic. It closed on the 20th.
What?
March 2000.
Oh, they're closed. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop this.
What was that second program you showed us the other?
Save